Hello, this is Alexander Brendan, and I'd like to welcome you to this review of the Yamaha MOX F8 88-key synthesizer workstation. I'd like to state first and foremost that I do not work for Yamaha and I don't represent Yamaha. I do use a lot of their gear, as you can plainly see. However, this has been a review a long time coming, mainly because I've done a lot of research into what I think is a really good workstation, and I'll explain exactly what that means. So let's get started at least by playing it a little bit. A lot of people talk, enough talk from me. Let's hear what it sounds like. So that's full concert grand. We also have other instruments, and honestly, a lot of these can be heard already in other reviews. If you do YouTube search for Yamaha MOX, you can check out the Yamaha MOX8 and MOX6, which is the previous model. This just came out onto the market, and it has a lot of those instruments, but it also contains instruments from the Yamaha Motif XF series. The previous contained instruments from the Yamaha Motif XS series. It can be kind of a mouthful to figure out all those names and funny designations, so to speak. But let's go to the, say, an electric piano. For a long time I was looking for a Yamaha CP piano because I'm a big Peter Gabriel fan. And let's see if we can, what you do is essentially push this button, category search, which is sitting right here next to the LED, to the screen. And you type in what category you want, and then after that you just spin the wheel to see that category. Right now I'm in electric pianos, so I know it's in here somewhere. This is a demonstration of, well, an example of exactly how this instrument pales in comparison to touch screens and other more advanced workstations, but we'll get more to that in just a second. Oh wait, you know what? I figured out why. It's because it's actually an acoustic piano. The CP series. So there's an example there. It also has some pretty impressive performances, which essentially means that you get a combination of bass drums or whatever else you want if you want to play live. So you just hit the performance button here, and right away, so there's a ton of sounds on this, and I'm not going to go through all of them. What I am going to do is start explaining exactly why this instrument. There's a lot of workstations out there, and why this instrument in particular. Well, let me state first and foremost that synthesizers, along with a lot of other things, are as personal as you are. And so before you make any decisions, do the research, go out on YouTube, see what they sound like, what the other people are that are using them, their experiences, and also go to a local Guitar Center or distributor and sample them for yourself to see if the sounds are the way you like, the functionality is what you like. So essentially, what I'm going to do is explain why I got this thing. I've been composing music for about 20 years, primarily for video games. And I found that previously, in about 2007, I purchased this. Forgive the terrible improv. So this is a Yamaha CVP301. Which you can find many demos out demonstrated by the incomparable Peter Bartmans, which is representative of Yamaha. He sounds like he might be Spanish, but make no mistake, he's Dutch, and he's a darn good player. So he does the Clavinova series. There's a lot of commonality between these two instruments, but I found that turning to the right and then turning back to my digital audio workstation on my PC added, honestly, it gets in the way of the creative vibe. And there's a lot of composers out there that, are pretty much forced to put their synthesizers next to them. And maybe they don't mind, but for me, it was like, it'd be great if there could be something right in front of the monitors. And so that's essentially why a workstation, as opposed to maintaining this. This will be our family piano where I teach my kids how to play, and we have a lot of fun on it. It has styles, it has a lot of different features and sequencing and the ability to write your own songs and listen to other songs, download stuff. Still has a antiquated 3.5-inch drive, but it has a USB interface as well. So anyway, so that's why the decision was made to go with this. Now, The next question is, why would you get an MOXF as opposed to something like, well, a Korg Chrome or even a Korg Kronos? So again, touchy subject, and about as individual as you can get in terms of synthesizers. The reason that you would get one of these, first and foremost, is two primary reasons: the price and the sounds. The price is roughly half of what you would get a Korg Kronos for. Korg Kronos has roughly 40 gigs of sounds. This has roughly 741 megabytes of sound. So there's a big difference there. But then you got to ask, well, geez, I mean, that's an awful lot that you would get. Even the Korg Chrome has gigs of instruments as opposed to megabytes, 2 to 3 or 4 gig. I don't know how much the Chrome has, but it has a lot more than the Yamaha. So then why a Yamaha? Why not just go for that? Go for the Korg. For me, it's the sounds. This instrument has a lot more expressiveness in the sounds that are here. Clearly, Yamaha does a lot more with less with their sounds. It doesn't mean it's a perfect workstation. There's a lot of areas that Korg has over that, not just the additional articulations, which, in my opinion, don't sound quite as good, but it has a ton of workstation functionality. Korg still pretty much is the king of all-in-one synthesizer workstations. If you want to take it gigging, if you want to use it in the studio all by itself, go ahead and get a Korg. They're fantastic for that. But the question then becomes, how many composers use only their keyboard workstations? Not that many. Most of us use PCs these days in order to write music and to even practice and sample what we hear and check it out. So again, the Yamaha has a good deal of sounds that are very inspirational, and so therefore, I mean, you can just go into it with. There's quite a few opportunities to be able to check out the different performances, the different voices, and the arpeggiations that you get. So, for example, you can hit the voice button here, and you can then go into on the screen here. You see ARP, which is arpeggiation. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up to 6 arpeggiations. Probably more than that. I don't know. I haven't gone through the whole thing yet. But when you hit the arpeggiation on/off button, and you activate it, and you select an arpeggiation, and then you can go to the next one. And you can program your own arpeggiations in. So the inspirational content really comes from there. Again, I'm not doing the best job demoing it off the cuff, but that's the kind of functionality that you have. So first, I mean, essentially for the price, for an 88-key weighted keyboard, the actual weight of the keys is not too bad. Let's go back to just a standard piano. I mean, plenty of velocity and articulation. The way that the keys feel is actually pretty good. It's not quite as solid and piano-like as the Clavinova for obvious reasons. I mean, there's a lot less space, a lot less weight. This keyboard is roughly 32 pounds, so you can actually gig with this if you want. It also has functionality that you can program into these knobs. For example, I really like the ability to have ASDR, attack, decay, sustain, release, so that if I want to have like a pad, we can go to pad. And I want to change the attack of that pad. Like, for example, that's saw pad. Now if I want to go to attack, I just push the button to assign the attack, and then all of a sudden, it takes a little bit longer to come up. It's right there on the surface of the keyboard for you. So that's really convenient. Another example of why get this is its integration with programs like Steinberg's, Cubase, and Nuendo. So Cubase and Nuendo are the programs that I use, and I got lucky in that case because this has a button here called DAW Remote. When you push DAW Remote, you can control your sequencer with play and stop and fast forward and rewind. It also has the ability to make the MOX a VST instrument so that you can load it and control it from your DAW as opposed to going through the LED screen, which is a lot more limiting. And there's a ton of good functionality. One little drawback there, however, is that if you're used to synthesizers that exist on your, like Omnisphere on your PC, you're used to having a faster mixdown process when you export your song. Because this is an external instrument, it needs to do a real-time export. So if you have a 4-minute song, you'll wait 4 minutes for it to export. And for some people, maybe they don't want to wait that long. So in those cases, maybe what you want to do is freeze your instrument, make it audio so that you can do that fast export, and just disable the VST by the time you go to export in Cubase or Nuendo. So let's see. The actual feel of the instrument is pretty solid. I mean, it definitely, you know, it isn't quite as, you know, metal-like or sturdy as, say, the Korg Chrome, but it certainly, as with the previous MOXs, doesn't feel like it's going to bend, or, you know, you can see that it will bend a little bit if you push down here. It'll bow just slightly, but that certainly doesn't make it like so cheap that if you drop it, it's going to smash into a million pieces. So a good solid feel. Good feel to the instruments, good functionality, and the price, again, is huge for what you get. So go to your guitar chat. Excuse me. So let's see. So to take you out, let's have one more performance, and go to your Guitar Center, check these out, do the research, and I highly recommend them.